What's up, everyone? It's Mike with For the Nation podcast. Today's episode is with two friends of mine, Marcelo and Mary Liz Escanuela. These guys just started an incredible foundation called We Go On, which seeks to provide hope, support, and encouragement for those dealing with mental health issues. This episode serves as the testimony for their organization and the hope that it can provide. That said, before we get to the episode, I want to say a quick thank you to my friends at Kings Creek Apparel for this amazing ensemble Woods and Water hat with the flyby tee. It's clutch. Go check them out at kingscreekapparel.com. That said, let's get to the episode. Good? Good. All right. Well, today I am joined by two friends of mine, Marcelo and Mary Liz Escanuela. Thank you so much for joining me.
Having us. For sure. We appreciate it.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I've been working with Marcelo for about a year and some change now, doing some real estate on the side, and he's been a great mentor to me and really appreciative of that. So we'll have to get you back on to talk about real estate, but for now, it's a new venture, We Go On Incorporated. Before we get to that, just kind of take the floor. Both of you guys introduce yourselves.
For sure. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'm Mary Liz, and I am wife to Marcelo and mom to Penelope and Leo, and we've been living in Augusta since the end of 2014, and it has just been a crazy ride of just from the beginning of our relationship to where we are now. And so I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Of course.
And just excited to share our story with everyone.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. So Marcelo, I'm just to piggyback, we've been married almost just 10 years this month actually, and we have two sweet little kids, Penelope and Leo, that they are everything to us. And I think a couple years ago my answer would be different. I'd give you my entire backstory of a career, but it's a lot more, and it's life, and it's who we are as a couple, as parents, and as believers.
Awesome. I love that. Real quick, how did you guys come to the name Penelope and Leo? I mean, they're pretty untraditional, but they're also traditional in the same sense. I love them.
Well, my last name, no secret, it does not flow super well.
Trust me, I've got one of those names too.
With traditional American names.
So, we just started spitballing names that we thought would go well, and we actually started thinking a lot of Latin names.
Yeah,
and right, and that how Penelope kind of came about was Penelope Cruz. We were just thinking of female actress names that we could think of Latin.
It was also a classic. We were just we don't want, I feel like a lot of names nowadays are just very, very out there.
Yeah.
But I kind of wanted to stick to traditional, but also something that we haven't heard in a long time. And so when I thought about Penelope Cruz, and he was like, oh yeah, love that name. Love her. Love that name.
Yeah. And
then when we were trying to name Leo, we wanted to go with Lionel after Lionel Messi. But
he's back in the U.S. now. Or not back, but he's in the U.S. now. So.
Sure. But we did realize that living in the South, it would probably cause some confusion, and we didn't necessarily want people calling him Lionel. So we thought of Leonardo, and the basis of it was we were always going to call him Leo. And so we were just why not just stick with that?
Yeah. Why do the long name? Why not just cut to the chase of what you're going to actually call him and just put that on the birth certificate? So, that's how we landed on Leo.
It causes confusion. I'm glad y'all did that, because for me, it causes confusion. I introduce myself as Michael, but I like Mike way better.
Yeah, and I just call you Michael because of it, and I don't really realize it's
whatever, I'll answer it and everything. I always say Michael, though, because it sounds more professional. It's I'm Michael. But it's just Mike. So.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing is y'all are from kind of different parts of the United States.
Yes.
You guys want to touch on how you ended up first finding each other and then here in Augusta?
Yeah. So I originally grew up in New York, Long Island. I'll just put it out there, the Hamptons.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. That's how people know it. Didn't grow up rich, nothing of that, super middle class, but it was a pretty sweet place to grow up. And I ended up moving down to Orlando, Florida, to go work at Disney World. And that's ultimately how we met there within the first week of living there. And so that was pretty cool. So that's kind of how we tied and met. Completely different backgrounds, had no idea. I mean, I grew up Catholic boy, New York, way different upbringing than what I learned Mary Liz to have. And so that's kind of my side of it.
I was born in Dallas, Texas. I'm actually adopted. My parents could not have kids. And so my brother and I are both adopted. But we ended up moving from Texas to Florida. And I kind of split my time growing up in Florida and Texas. So when I get excited, I get an accent. But for the most part, I really don't have, I very much have a neutral accent, I feel like. So when I tell people I'm from Texas, they're like, oh, okay.
Do you claim Texas? Like everyone that I met from Texas is like, I could tell you the Texas state anthem or whatever, or the pledge or all that. And
Texas
I'm like,
hard.
bro, it's another state.
It's another country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I love Texas so much. I would move back there in a heartbeat. But I will sing the Stars at Night are Big and Bright deep in the heart of Texas all the time. That's like my go-to. Like if I'm just bored and there's no sound happening and I'm just like deep in the heart of Texas.
Yeah.
That's where I want to be.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of Texas?
Probably the Dallas area. I mean, I do enjoy San Antonio. It's very I feel like culturally it is very more Mexican, I would say.
In San Antonio?
Yeah, that's my background. So I'm half Mexican, half Spanish. So I really like the aesthetic of San Antonio. It's just like a really cool place to visit. I wouldn't want to live there, but I love Dallas because you do have the city, like big city aspect of it, but then you kind of have your smaller cities around it where, it's kind of like smaller. You kind of get suburbs, but also more rural as you get
further out there,
a little bit further out. But it's just really cool because there's all this open land and just, I don't know, everything's so carefree out there.
It's taken off, too. I have family just outside of Dallas in the Frisco area.
Yeah, that's where I lived.
Yeah. And it's called the Colony. I don't know if you...
Oh, yes. I do know the
And
Colony.
it, like, from when my aunt bought a place to now, it's like a whole new city. I mean, it's...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said when we went back there
so
in
much.
December. She was just showing me around because we never really gone together. And she's like, this wasn't there. This wasn't here. This wasn't here.
Yeah.
It was
These
fun.
highways weren't there.
There's a lot to do out there. It's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So I want to talk about Disney for a second. What brought you guys to Disney? Like, what attracted you to Disney?
So for me, we went as kids like seldomly, but my brother worked there. He went down kind of before me. And they have like a college program, and that's what we ended up doing. And I had a free semester in college. Nothing else panned out of what I wanted to do, like internship wise, and that was a fail-safe. And so we went, which is really funny. I declared as hospitality major and changed 2 weeks before school to sports management. And my first job out of college is in hospitality. So it's kind of funny. And it was fun. Like it was a cool experience to get to work there and live there and have the Disney parks as our backyard.
Yeah, that is crazy. How about you? What drew you to Disney?
So I actually wanted to work at Disney since I was a little kid. I mean, same as Marcelo, I went all the time, but we lived about 45 minutes away in Merritt Island. So we went often and, had our annual passes and we went with other families that we were, friends with, growing up with. And it was just one of those places that it was just like you just feel immersed in a whole different world. And, it's like that escape from reality. But that's when I wanted to. I knew that, like, when I was in college, I was like, I really want to work at Disney one day. Yeah. And I don't know if it's, like, in costuming or what, but I went to school, to college, and I studied fashion merchandise and design. So I was in textile classes and made my own clothes. And that was like the dream. The ultimate dream was just to work at Disney and be in costuming. Wow. And so I heard about the college program because we had friends that actually worked there as well. And so I reached out to them. We talked a little bit, and they were like, you should try the college program. And it's really fun because, like, since you're about to graduate, you can still go and just have this experience under your belt. And so I ended up being able to work in merchandise when I first started working there. And, yeah, so, like, we ended up meeting And, plans change. Things change when, you meet the person that you're supposed to be with for the rest of your life.
Yeah,
Sure.
there's a line from a Thomas Rhett song I love, and it's like, you make your plans and you hear God laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you think you know where it's going, and then,
Spot on.
yeah, life changes.
Oh,
Spot on.
absolutely.
That's the name of the song, actually.
Okay.
But, alrighty, so I want to talk about We Go On now.
Yep.
What is it? What does the nonprofit do?
All right. So I just right off the rip, I just, we've talked about this and, how we want to present this going forward, and just a little bit of a backstory of how we came to start this foundation was back in 2019, actually, our little Leo had an accident. He spilled a cup of tea on himself, and which was my tea, and we had to take him to the hospital, and found out that he had 2nd-degree burns. He had to get all that dead skin scrubbed off. We had to have a procedure, so it was just all this like major shock all at once, and it kind of turned into this like tailspin for me. I started struggling terribly with anxiety and just like, all the what ifs, like, well, I should have done this. I shouldn't have even made the tea. All those things that just pop into your mind of just like, am I a terrible mother? Like, why would I do this? And I just started having panic attacks since then, and just really, really struggled with just internally all these issues that I thought, like, what is wrong with me? And so I ended up starting to see someone, a counselor, and trying to understand how I could better manage these emotions, like what I was feeling. And I really just felt like this was a good direction, a good start of like how to fix myself. And then COVID hit. And a lot of that changed. I wasn't able to go see her. It was all more so online. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not, like, I have to be, like, face-to-face with a person, or else, like, I don't feel like I'm going to get anything from it. And that really just kind of put a setback in the progress that I thought I was making. Really, it was just, like, a stepping stone, just that start. But it just got worse and worse for me. Like that anxiety like just skyrocketed after COVID hit. And I was just in this state of every time I would just get more anxious and anxious and anxious. And I would just like sit in that anxiety. And then all of a sudden I would just crash into depression. And so finally I was able to talk to her, and we worked with my doctor, and I ended up getting on some antidepressants to see if that would help anything at all. And it kind of did, but also it was just, I wasn't managing myself well. And, further and further on, it was just like, I was just trying to explain to Marcelo, like, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know how to fix myself. Like, what do I do? And all this stuff. And, we just weren't necessarily seeing eye to eye on where that was, because like our views on things were so vastly different of how we saw mental health issues. And so his definition of that was definitely different than what I had and what I was going through.
Yeah. And so for, my side of that is just, to piggyback what you're saying, mental health was not even on my radar.
Yeah.
Anxiety I was on the mindset of it's what you make of it. When that burn happened, obviously it was super scary and it was an awful day, but he was okay, right? But I didn't necessarily think, how did that affect her? All I could think of, he's okay, not the treatment. Let's move forward. So much of my life has been that way from childhood, of just like, all right, it's done. We can't dwell on the past, and not necessarily realizing, how does that affect you? So I didn't understand it. I couldn't be a support. COVID hit, work in real estate absolutely went bananas.
Yeah,
and so I am just going nonstop working, and, not 100% neglecting home life, because I've always been an involved parent, but certainly one of those people who answer the phone every single time it rings, felt that need to, I've got to provide. I've got to make sure we're doing all these things, living up to this expectation. But in reality, I wasn't putting my focus on Mary Liz. I wasn't putting the focus on our marriage. I wasn't putting the focus on God, as I needed to be. I was so focused on providing and felt like that is what I just have to do. And so I just couldn't grasp it. It's hard to empathize with someone when you don't understand the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, my flip side. And it led to just a season of our marriage that was dark and just a lot of disconnection.
Yeah. I would say like that disconnect just really hit hard for us. I think as the years went on, it was just we were two completely different people living in the same house, coexisting. And it was just really hard for us to, be on the same page, just not just with each other, but like parenting. Like, that's a huge piece of your life puzzle that you have to be on the same page as your partner. Like you are in a partnership together. But I think that's what caused a lot of division for us, was that like that disconnect. Like it really, like it was just like something coming unplugged, and we just did not see eye to eye. And for me, it was just it just caused something inside of me that was just like, I have to keep all these feelings in. Like I can't go to him because he'll listen, but he's not going to understand what I'm saying. And, it just, life presented the opportunity, unfortunately, that I ended up talking with another man. And, someone who I thought saw me when my husband didn't. And it was easy to be able to share our experiences and just our struggles with anxiety and depression when, and you just feel like you can connect with this person because they're actually listening to you and they're feeling the same way you are. And, your spouses aren't fulfilling you in that way. And it just... I entered into a season where I was having an affair for a while, and it was just a really, really dark season of my life. A lot of people were able to see this turn in me. That was just like, I was just, not that I was getting like physically darker and darker, but they could just tell that like my spirit was. Yeah. And it was. And I wasn't told that at the time, but, after everything came out last year in July, I finally had those people telling me, like, you could tell that there was just something terribly wrong. Like, that was just, it wasn't who you used to be. And it all made sense. And so, we are both really thankful that last year happened, that this was all uncovered, that my sin was uncovered, because it was able to get us to where we are now. But also it's just, we are able to have this story that is so impactful to the both of us that we didn't even think that we'd be where we are today without it. And, I think for Marcelo, like there is just, you can tell that there's also been a shift for him too. And, he's just got an incredible story to tell on his own, but I'm just grateful that we get to tell it together.
Yeah. And so, not to forget your initial question of how it started, and we're getting there slowly. It's just a big backstory of where it all came about. So, right, last July hit, terrible, rough time in life, spiraling completely. But now I understand anxiety. I understand PTSD. I understand triggers. Not necessarily it would be months later that I could empathize with her fully of where she was previous years, because the anger just clouded everything. Yeah. But I understood it. It was like, okay, this stuff is real. So I didn't doubt it anymore. And that was a big, big piece. So there was a season where we were trying to figure out what we're doing. We're going to counseling heavily. We both said we wanted to make it work, but just wasn't happening as we wanted it to be. super, super hard. And we just realized necessarily couldn't do it on our own. So a lot of resources, a lot of help. One in particular is this book called I Do Again by Jeff and Cheryl Scruggs out of Dallas, Texas. And I was blessed enough to get to speak with Jeff Scruggs. Shorten of their story, they were married for a long time, divorced for 7 years, get back together. There was an affair in there. So getting to speak with him, something he said that changed my mindset big time was reconciliation will never happen until you can recognize what did you contribute to the environment that led to that. And that like sunk with me because for the first however many weeks, I was just focused on you did this, you did that, and not really looking at myself. And so I started to reflect a lot, not fully everything, but I realized, man, I did work a bunch and justified everything regarding that. I could lash out, not in verbally abusive anger, but just, get upset, get worked up and be like, this is what I got to do. And just could be pretty passive aggressive, And so I quickly started to focus on what did I do? Where are my improvements? Take the focus off of her. And we've learned just this past year, you only can control yourself. And so that's what I tried to start doing. And at the center of all of it, I knew I was not in a place spiritually where I needed to be. And so I think we were going to God, but we never fully surrendered to God last summer. And that's a big difference. You can know him and give your life to him, but it is a daily choice to continually surrender to him. And that, I think once we finally got to that place is when we started to see, a different shift and,
100%.
And then kind of leading into on-site.
Yeah. I had friends that have stuck by my side, not just my side, but our side throughout this whole entire year. And one of my dear friends suggested on-site, just like, hey, just look into it, see if you think it's a place that you might want to go. So I did. I looked into it, and I was like, I don't understand what I'm reading right now, but I'll go. Like, if in my mindset, I was just like, if it can fix me, I will do it. Like, I want to just be fixed. And I wanted that change so badly because I wanted to fix the mistakes that I had made. And so I did. I made the drive up there all by myself, and which it's all the way in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. And it was a long drive. I was excited. The closer that I got more and more excited. I was just like, okay, this place is going to be so awesome. And then probably about 45 minutes out, I was like, what if it doesn't work? What if they don't believe me? What if, like, all these questions that just came into my mind of, like, worry and doubt. And, at the time I didn't realize, like, it was just Satan creeping back into my mind. Just like, what if they don't accept you, or, all this, that, and the other. And I pulled on to the grounds there and surrendered pretty much everything. They took my suitcase to my room for me. They took my car. They took all of my electronics. So I had 0 phone for an entire week. And let me just tell you, there is just something incredibly magical about this place. And it's so hard. We've tried. We have agreed. It is just so hard to explain this place without experiencing it for yourself. It is just incredible the amount of hard work that you do at on-site. And, I thought I was going for this whole other reason of just like, I'm going to deal with what I have done. I'm going to deal with the mistake that I made. And it completely turned into all the things that actually led up to my behavior. It was more so I got to backtrack all the way to my childhood and a lot of just serious trauma that has happened that I never really actually dealt with. I, for my entire life, have been a sweeper. I just swept everything under the rug, and I just let the rug deal with it. And it wasn't until all this came out that, like, literally everything that I have done, it just started creeping out on the other side of that rug, to where it was just like, you can only sweep so much under until it starts pouring out. And so that's when I was able to start actually dealing with and, you know, talking about a lot of the things that have just happened to me, things that, you know, I just never dealt with, even like as my family. Like I love my family dearly. But we just growing up never talked about things. We never talked about our feelings. So when my grandma died when I was 12, I just sat in my room. I didn't talk to my parents about it. I think I got asked maybe once or twice if I was okay, but that was pretty much it. So we didn't talk about feelings. My dad's a pastor, so he deals a lot with death all the time. And my mom was a trauma nurse before my brother and I came along. So she saw so much just being a nurse. So I think like it was hard for them to just have more of like a personal attachment to that grief that I had that I've never experienced before in my life.
Right.
So that was just like kind of the start of everything. And then I was able to just keep working through my life about, you know, all of these things that have happened that led up to this one moment of just complete shambles that my life was in. And so I mean, it's just incredible, the people that are there, like the people that work with you, the people that are in your group, because we did do a group therapy session. I still, to this day, have a group message that, and every single Tuesday, it's Tribe Tuesday, and that's when we're all kind of catching up on the week, seeing how everybody is. And, you know, there are some hard things that people are dealing with. And, you know, there are some really good things that people are dealing with. But, you know, it's just one of those things where it's amazing to see how these people that you had no idea existed before you got on those grounds are some of the most impactful people that are in your life now, and care about you and love you for who you are, not what you've done and what you've gone through. You know, they love you despite that.
Right.
And it's just a really, really cool experience. But you do a lot of serious, hard work while you're there. And, you know, they tell you the most important thing is that, hey, you're about to go back to reality. Make sure that you're still doing the work after you leave here, because this is you discover a lot about yourself. There's magic that happens here, but don't forget that once you get back into reality and your routines and everything, that you don't let that slip away, because you still have work to do, despite being in this place for 6-7 days. And you know, I think there's just this shift that happens when you're there that is just so incredible and life-changing that, at least for me, I had momentum to want to fix those things.
Yeah. And so she had the momentum, and I'm over here. She's gone for 6 days. Like, what are we doing? You know, I still didn't know where we stood. And those 6 days were really important for me to be alone. And I'll never forget the night she got her phone back. It was a Tuesday night. She's supposed to get your phone back Wednesday. I didn't know if she was going to call me. I didn't know where we stood, really. And she called me that Tuesday night in just the most happiest of tears. And I got that call, and I mean, it was like a loss for words. I still am. Like, when I think on that moment, I heard a different person. Not even the Mary Liz I met 11 years ago. It was like a more like enhanced, clean version of her. It was like, this is who I met, but like almost on steroids. It was like it was so unbelievable. I'm still in so much pain and hurting, right? But she just kept telling me about this place. And so what it is, it's an intensive group therapy or individual therapy. They have so many different aspects. And it truly is magical. So every day she wrote me a letter. I didn't know about this till we got home. She gave them to me, and I'm reading them. And at the end of each one, it says, like, you just got to experience this place for yourself. Words cannot do it justice. And so she got home Wednesday. Lo and behold, Friday, I signed up, and I was going next Thursday. And nervous, anxious, all the above, because I can talk to people, but like that, again, I'm new to anxiety and therapy and all of this, and I'm just like, this is
a little outside
outside the zone here. And so, but I went, and obviously went for my trauma from this situation, and it helped give me that kickstart. It helped us give that momentum that we needed. You know, we were trying to do it ourselves. We needed this, but really we needed God at the center of it. And this also helped realign that, you know, for us. It's just like, we can't do any of this without God at the center of our marriage and putting him first and then each other. But we give so much thanks to this place on site because it truly is magical. It truly helped. We're not going to say it 100% saved our marriage because God first and foremost, and then the amount of hard work we put in the years since. But it was definitely a catalyst.
Right.
And so that is what really kind of started what We Go On, you know, ultimately is. So kind of tie it all in together. We were just blown away with this place. And when we were coming back, lo and behold, we both had this idea that we wanted to help people. We wanted to share this place with people. And on my drive back, I called one of my best friends who was with me in all of this. And he goes, "Can I benefit from this place?" It's kind of, I was like, dude, anybody can. Like, this place is not just for someone who has trauma. If you're just needing to go get your head clear for a couple of days, but if you do have anxiety, you do have a lot of issues, like it can certainly help. So that kind of planted a seed in my head of like, man, I would love to be able to share this place to other people. And I spoke to Mary Liz about it, and she kind of had the same idea too. We didn't know we were on the same wavelength about it. And that's what kind of just bred us starting to think about it. And then I'll let you talk like how we just landed. We ended up landing, we wanted to help people.
Right.
And now we're trying to figure out, well, what do we call it?
Yeah. So we were just sitting on the couch one night, just like talking and, you know, brainstorming about like, how do we help people? How do we get people here? Because I mean, it is not an inexpensive place to go. And if you experience this place, you will understand why it costs a lot of money, but it is worth every single penny. And, you know, we were just like, you know, getting back to that point where we were just like, we need to put the Lord at the focus of our relationship and recognize a lot of the things in our lives that we have just been blessed with. And, you know, we have been blessed to be able to go. We have been blessed with our family. We just have all these blessings in our life to where it's just like, how on earth are we going to be able to share that blessing with other people? Yeah. And that's why we, you know, had this idea of just, well, maybe we just need to start a foundation in order to, you know, try and raise money to, you know, help people to get here. You know, we can contribute, but also, you know, I'm sure that there's people out there who are feeling the same way, like whether it be the people that we have gone to on-site with or just people in our lives that are advocates for mental health. And so, you know, we're just sitting and we're spitballing names, and ultimately we ended up with We Go On. And it actually goes back to our Disney days. So we actually have this common bond. Our favorite park that we love is just Epcot. And they used to have they call it a fireworks spectacular called Illuminations. And really it's about all the nations just coming together, unity. But the words of this song were just so impactful the days after. And I didn't realize it. You know, I've been, you know, playing this song for years, even after the show has ended. And, you know, we just listening to them after everything has just had more of an impact on us and on me. But it's just talking about how we move forward. And, you know, coming back together has just been such a huge blessing, a big deal. But like, it just speaks to everything that we want to do. Like, we want to move forward in this. Not that the past, we're trying to erase it. We're not trying to do that at all. Our past and what has happened to us has made us, has contributed to who we are. It's not that it's made us who we are. Right. But it's a huge piece of our story. But how do we move forward from that? And that is all in all what we want to get across to to people and to really just, in order to help people, is that we want you to move forward from whatever you're facing in life, whether it be something that's our story, like that's similar to our story, or if it's something that's completely different. Like, it doesn't matter what you're going through. We want to be able to get the word out there that there is hope and that there is healing. And, it's hard work. It's a journey, but, that's another thing that we've learned is to just trust the process.
Yeah.
That's one of their sayings there is just trust the process, which is really funny because the guy who helped me through all of this, that's what he said to me the whole time. And when I show up to this place, they have trust the process like above one of the doorways. And I was just like almost like a sign from God. It was like, okay, let's go and figure this out. And so, yeah, we just want to be able to be advocates for mental health, be supporting, of people. And whether that's just getting them in the right direction of, hey, who can you talk to? Do you need a church to plug into? Yeah. Do you need to just go to counseling? Do you need a more intensive type therapy like an on-site? So it's not just all-inclusive. I think on-site helped us figure out what we want to do with the mission, and we've kind of expanded on it to just, we want to be the resource because so many people don't know where to start, and so many people are afraid. And we've also believed that, God's put us through this because he is sovereign to allow us to share our story and be vulnerable. And even that seed, if someone doesn't approach us, they say, hey, we experienced this week, but maybe that little bit of a seed will give them the vulnerability to go talk to someone and get the help that they need, even if it's not us, but we just want to be able to point people, in the right direction.
In the right direction, yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, but first and foremost, thank you for sharing that. I know that's, like you said, it's a vulnerable aspect of your relationship, and, to share it's a big thing, and I think it shows how far y'all have come from the situation. And I wrote down some things I kind of took from the story and the testimony you guys just shared. And the first thing that I resonated with was with Marcelo. I was kind of that person where it's like anxiety and all this stuff is not really made up, but it's what you make of it type thing. And I didn't learn until on my first deployment. Like, I was kind of like, what's this suicide? Why are people so depressed? And about halfway through the deployment, I was like, oh, I get it now. Mm-hmm. Like, you're stuck in a country you don't want to be in, doing things you don't really care to do, and there's no getting out of it. And I was like, oh, shoot, I get it now. So I definitely see that. And then through this podcast, just the different people that I've talked to and some of the stories that I've heard, it's like, life isn't black and white. It's definitely, there's gray areas, and, you got to learn to navigate through those. And, that's where I think faith comes into play. And like you said, Mary Liz, like once the baggage or the sin gets exposed, it sucks, but there's so much of a weight lifted off your shoulders. You're kind of like, thank you. Like, finally, you get a breath. I guess one of the big questions I have is, I feel like, and this is as a young married person, you guys are a young married couple.
Thank you.
Of course. But one thing I can't help but notice is, like, divorce rates are increasing year after year after year, and there seems like marriage is just a failing institution. Yeah. Is it, in your eyes, a failing institution? And, like, what would you do to change that?
I don't want to see it as a failing institution. I think it is just a cause. Not a cause, but an effect of sin. Mm-hmm. We're a fallen world. People don't value marriage and relationships as they should. But it is like it, at the beginning of time, like the very first couple was Adam and Eve. And, they're the reason why we're here right now. And, you see it all throughout scriptures that, humanity, we're just fallen. We are sinful people. And I don't love the fact that, it is failing. And, I think that we are not an anomaly, but we are we
hope to be, an impact or, a story of hope.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's
Absolutely.
what we're trying. 'Cause, right, they're there was those easy thoughts of just like, what, you know what I mean? Like biblically you have grounds for it, and sometimes that's the easy way out. But in my mind, at least growing up a child of divorce, like it was not an option for me. And I was always kind of known from the beginning of us getting together. That's something I never wanted.
Yeah.
But you are exposed to it. And, you know, I do think a lot of it comes down to your faith and your beliefs, you know, of having Christ at the center of your marriage. And that we've witnessed that firsthand, you know, because we watched when he was not at the center of our marriage.
Right. What happened?
What happened?
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I think that is the biggest difference between, like you said, like how can we fix something like that? Or like, how can we change that? Having Christ at the center of your marriage is the difference. Because I mean, I've recognized even recently, I mean, I feel like the past several months have just been probably the biggest difference we've seen in each other, not just in our relationship, but just spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have, it's funny to me because I've never been asked this question by him to where it was like, are you going to do your devotional today? Or do you have time to do it today? Or, you know, we're asking each other these questions that we've never asked each other before. And so it's really cool to see that we have come this far to where it's just like, oh, maybe I should do a devotional.
Right.
Let's do one together. And then, you know, being able to join Bible studies together and be able to have these conversations that we've never had before. Because like growing up in a preacher's home, was very different for me. Like I learned scripture, not that I took it to heart, but I've learned so much over the past 33 years of my life. And, for him, he grew up, Catholic and, you know, just, we grew up very different. So, but being able to study the Bible and have two completely different perspectives on it and have really good conversations about what we're learning has just really stretched us, but has also just strengthened us, spiritually, but also just together, you know, we are able to have just spiritual intimacy together. We are able to just have this relationship that we've never had before. Mm-hmm. And it's just it's incredible to see what the Lord has done in both of our lives.
There's so much accountability, and just how we do things is so different. And, and it's been pretty cool to put all these tools. You know, we always say we have like our tool belt. Now it's probably grown to like a tool chest of everything we've learned and what can we pull from it, you know, and then how can we just do it better? And we want to share that with people. Yeah.
I want to say I heard a Texas twang in there. You said preacher's home. You said it like that. And I was like, oh, there it is. There it is. But no, it's definitely like without Christ or just without Jesus as a foundation or anything as a foundation, it's so easy to tailspin, like you said. Like there's nothing to hold you up, you know? And so it is easy to find yourself crashing like that. What is the biggest takeaway that you guys took from on-site and brought to the marriage? Like what component? It seems like communication is kind of a big thing there.
Without a doubt, communication. We learned, I'd say communication, but also, I'm drawing a blank here.
You got to save
more security in ourselves and realizing that we, like I said before, we can only control ourselves. I would tiptoe around things because I was fearful of how she might react, you might react, anyone would react. We called each other people pleasers.
Oh, trust me, I'm right there.
You know, and now we call each other, we're trying to be recovering people pleasers. Like we want to help people, you know what I mean? But we also want to help ourselves. And I learned I abandoned myself like that and just so quick to jump to someone else. And they did an illustration, and that kind of hit home for me. And I took it to the nth degree when we got home because, like, I'm when I'm all in on something, I'm going to go the complete all in on it.
180.
And so she had to call me out because she was starting to get healed too. But, like, there was this, like, hula hoop diagram on the ground, and I was in one, and it's overlapped. And then, you know, someone was role-playing, and Mary Liz was in the other one. And so they use an example where when Mary Liz gets like this, what do you do? And I just ran by her side because I'm trying to, like, fix it. I'm trying to, and then she goes, well, who's in your hula hoop? And I look back, and when you saw that illustration, you're like, oh, that was a big moment for me. I would abandon myself and just completely. And so I learned not to abandon myself and learned that I can only control myself. I can't control her. I can't control outcomes. And I also don't need to be offended or take it personal if what I say, my feelings, she gets defensive or she gets hurt by it. Those are her feelings. And it's taken a year, to work through that. And it was not like the light switch. It was a lot of work to realize to not take things personally and to work through. So that was kind of big, for me. It's all about you and what you can control.
I mean, I would say that the big thing for me was that I defined myself by the things that have happened to me. And so I just let all of that build up over time. And I learned not to be defined by them. They can help grow you instead. And as he said, as a recovering people pleaser, I just did pretty much what anyone told me because I just didn't want to let anyone down. And, again, just being a pastor's kid is just it puts you in a difficult position because it's just like, I never want to do anything that would bring shame to my dad's name. And then, looking now, I'm just like, whoopsie. But just the fact that I would just completely do what anyone had asked me to do, to where it was just like, hey, will you teach this workout class for me? Yes, absolutely. Because who's going to do it if I don't do it? What if they don't find anybody? That's how I saw everything. It was just, if it wasn't going to be me, then who? And so I just piled everything on my plate. And even when I first started going to counseling and she started seeing all these things that I had on my plate, she was just like, so you have all this stuff that's going on here? And I was like, yeah, but I love it. It keeps me going. It keeps me busy. And she was just like, just remember, that's not always necessarily good. I'm happy for you that you're choosing your physical health and all this stuff, but what are you doing for your mental health other than you finally came to see a counselor? And I'm just like, well, we go to church and stuff and but it's much more than just saying you're doing all these things. It is just, it can weigh you down so much. And I think a big thing that I learned was that once you release a lot of the things and you're able to say no to things that you actually don't want to do, your perspective changes so much. And I mean, I walked away from on-site just completely changed, but also this weight was lifted off my shoulders. I still had weights on me, but just that initial release felt so good, and it felt so different. And I was just like, I can do this. It gave me that encouragement that I needed to be like, you can do this. Don't worry about all the what ifs, because if it's not in the Lord's will for that to happen, it's not going to happen. But you just have to completely surrender and trust the process, but also trust what the Lord's going to do. Whether our marriage makes it or not, the Lord's going to use this story in a way that I have no idea how he's going to do it. But he's going to do it. And because in his word, it just says that the Lord will bring it to completion and he will do what he says. And I think that was a big part for both of us, is just that we had to completely surrender our lives to the Lord, no matter how much we talked about it, no matter how many times we went to church, no matter who my dad was. It did not matter unless it was just a personal decision for each of us to decide that is the position that we have taken. And, we are going to be vocal about it. We're going to tell people that this is what happened, but look what the Lord's done.
And everything starts from within. I think that's one thing you've learned there. Introspective. And I think when I shared this with you previously, change really happens when the person themselves wants to initiate the change, right? You send the alcoholic to rehab 5 times, but if he's dragged there by his family, it might not hit home. But if he walks in those doors by himself, that's probably going to be a bigger impact. And so that was a big thing for us, was starting from within and recognizing this is the change we wanted. This is what we want. And we've learned if you speak light to something, it doesn't have the same control over you.
Yeah.
You know,
speaking about mental health, similar to like divorce and marriage as a quote unquote failing institution, mental health seems to be, I don't know if it's necessarily getting more attention or it's more represented in today's climate. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think younger people deal with it a lot more than previous generations. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I've always thought it was more of a comfort level of talking about it. I think that's just me personally. I think previous generations,
like it's always been there to you.
It's always been there. It's just like, you know, I look at my dad's generation and, we're not talking about feeling. It's just like, you know what I mean? We're not talking about feeling. Suck it up. No. You know what I mean? Like, let's get it. And so I think that's part of it, is the other generation just being willing to share more. That's where I see it coming from.
Yeah. How about you?
I would definitely agree with that, just because coming from a house that didn't talk about feelings, my brother and I have been able to have really good conversations about like how we grew up and just how we're doing things differently now that we have our own families. And I don't want to shy away from that with our kids, especially, to where it's just like, if you have feelings, let's talk about it. That's one thing that we definitely have been trying to make a shift on with our own kids, is that, you know, when they're upset, like if one sibling wrongs the other sibling and someone's crying, how are you feeling about that? Like, tell me, what feelings do you have regarding that? And they're able to communicate how they're feeling about a situation. And I think even making those small steps make a huge difference for them, because they actually feel heard. It's not that you're just correcting one child. You're actually able to listen to the hurting child and understand where they're coming from. And you're able to allow that conversation for the two of them to hear their emotions regarding it. Because it's not like we're taking that child away from the other one and, you know, and whatnot. It's just one sibling is able to hear the impact that the other sibling had on them. And we're not like, we're wanting to do that too, to where we can express our emotions in front of our kids and just have difficult conversations regarding how we're feeling. But yeah,
I think the other thing too, generationally, maybe you got to talk to your kids about feelings and let them feel whatever they want, but we are very much on the same page of, but if you did something wrong, we're going to correct you. There's going to be discipline. I think maybe that's a generational thing too. It's kind of, you know,
we lost a little bit of that, for sure.
You know, it's like, hey, how do you feel? And then just let them have that feeling. But we know biblical principles and parental principles of just like, yeah, but if you did this wrong, we're going to share why. We want to know how you feel so you can feel heard. But what that does is allows for a deeper connection with our children, so that when we share that discipline with them, they're going to hopefully respect us and not rebel or push back. We want it to sink into them. And I think there's a gap, you know, you see there in the world of just like, it's just the feelings, but then the parents will do good at one or the other, really good disciplinaries, or maybe do this. But so let's try and merge the two. Hey, we want to hear you. We want to be here for you. But we're still going to lay the law down if you did something wrong. Yeah. And we're just going to tell you why. So it's just taking a little different approach to it.
I think every story is just kind of proof that sin does have consequences. But every story can be redeemed. No matter how big or how small, there is redemption, because the Lord never stops chasing after us. It's when we decide to chase after him and we can meet together, that's when beauty can happen. And that's what we've discovered from our stories, that like, it does, like, yes, there's this huge generational gap, but we were able to come to the conclusion that this is just a beauty from ashes situation. And we want to be able to incorporate that into our kids' lives. And we want to be able to pass that to other people as well. And I think that's why, I mean, that both of us really are huge advocates for mental health. And really, I think education can come from anywhere. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of young people can learn from more seasoned people. But I would say that also those people who are seasoned human beings.
Older is what you're referring
Yes,
to. It's
but
okay.
I
We don't
wanted
have to step
say it
on it.
nicely. But I think that they could learn from us too, and just seeing the difference that we can make. And, you know, I actually think my dad is kind of the perfect example of that. Like, we have learned recently and just watched him grow, and how he is just really taken on a more deeper understanding of mental health, one that, you know, I don't think he realized was there before. I know that I've had several conversations with him, and one that stuck out to me was I was in his office one day, and, you know, he was just asking me what was going on with me, and I was like, Dad, I'm depressed. I'm on medication, and, you know, I finally told him, like, I'm in counseling. I'm really struggling. I really don't know what's going on with me. And he's like, but you're such a happy person. And I'm like, here's the thing. I can portray myself to be a happy person, but that is a mask that I'm putting on for the world. Internally and in my own home, I'm a completely different person than I am in front of my friends. I mean, my closest friends knew what was going on, and, you know, I could just break down to them in a heartbeat. But I think, you know, generationally, there was this disconnect to where he didn't understand where I was coming from. I could explain it to him all day long, and it was just, there was no understanding on both sides, because I was just like, why isn't he understanding me? But I'm sure, like, he was doing the same thing, to where it was just like, well, I don't understand, but why isn't she understanding me? Like, why, like, it's, and, you know, we have to place our trust in the Lord, but also that is where you step out in to where it's your own decision. Like, you have the ability to choose if you're going to fully surrender to the Lord or not, and how that changes you. Like, you get to watch that. And you change one way or another, whether you decide to fully surrender or not. And I think that is just a big thing for me that I've learned, that it's just like, I fully believe that he is learning something from us. And I mean, we're definitely learning from him. I mean, we learn every single week, but I think that there is a platform that we have to where we can share our story, to where we can reach multiple generations. And I think, at least for millennials, I think that that's very different. We are very outspoken about, like, you know, we need help. We're, like, in a really tough place, and we're doing it. We're going to therapy. We're going to counseling, all these things. And then it's just kind of for the older generation, it's just like, you don't talk about that. Like, you don't talk about going to therapy or anything like that. You deal with that in private. But if we don't talk about it, how do people know?
Right.
I think that's where we're kind of just like, we don't want people to be afraid to talk about mental health and taking care of yourself, because that is so important. It's an important piece to the puzzle, to where it's just like, you can still be physically okay. You can, you know, take care of yourself physically. You can take care of yourself spiritually, but also mentally, like, psychologically. You have just got to take care of all three aspects of yourself to, you know, make sure that you are just this fine-tuned machine. I mean, we're all broken. We're not going to work just right all the time. Yeah. But I do think that is a very important aspect for us.
We felt called, like, to just share this story, and I think God's given us the gifts to be able to share with it and deal with it, because I think, like you said, a lot of people can't talk about it. You know, we've met a lot of people in all of this that just kind of stuff feelings inside, and it's how they are. And so our prayer and hope is that by us sharing, we'll give people hope. Whether, again, that's not through us or not, but just at least, like, hey, you're not alone. And it doesn't have to just be our story. It's just mental health as a whole. It's just, if you're vulnerable, I think that breeds other vulnerability. And so just allowing that to happen. And then empathy is massive. Like what she just said, like, even putting herself to think, like, what is her dad thinking? I mean, 2 years ago, we wouldn't have done that. You know, we wouldn't have, you take everything personal, defensive. And I think that's what so many people do. And it's taking a second to sit back and think, okay, what is the other person thinking here? And that can help you. We've learned you don't have to agree with them, but it at least helps tie the story together. And I think prevents the miscommunication from happening. Because if you're just one-sided thinking your way the whole entire time, how does any sort of resolution occur?
Yeah. It reminds me of yesterday at church, one of the songs that they sang in worship. There was a line that says, we all have a song inside of us. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that, it was like a beautiful, like, oh my gosh, I understand that completely. Like, we all want to be heard and be seen. And sometimes, like you said, and I do it too, I know I do it. Sometimes it's easier to not sing our song and just sing what's on the radio. Yeah. You know, something that everybody knows. Mm-hmm. And that's the cover up. And It's like, well, you're not being who you are.
Not being genuine.
Yeah. And that's where I think, like, y'all's story is beautiful because it shows the redeeming quality of relationships and Christianity and, you know, being able to work through these tough situations.
Sure.
One aspect I think that's weird with mental health or contributing to it is phones. Like, do you think at onsite, if they didn't take your phone away, do you think it would have been as effective?
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, just the fact that you had to be there and
Mm-hmm.
be fully present,
Mm-hmm.
and no distractions. Even at the end of the night too, that for me was so, you know, before bed, look on the phone. In the morning, I look on my phone. And not having that for those 2 periods alone allowed me to reflect on the night, you know, the day that I just had, and then the night. And so it was pretty cool. I stopped wearing an Apple Watch after we came back from there. I just recently started wearing it again for like exercise purposes, but like I love not being as connected as I once was.
Yeah.
It is such a distraction.
Oh, it's hard. Just from like the real estate thing getting plugged in there, it's so hard to not answer a call at 8 p.m. because you're like, I'm going to lose this.
Without a doubt.
And I guess it's a risk that you got to take if you want to prioritize what's important.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like when you ask yourself what's important, you know what's important to you.
For sure.
And you know what needs to be done, but so often you're like, but it's right here. Let me just 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times I've lost my phone since coming back from on-site. And, like, I've left it in places, and I'm just like, do you know where my phone is? I can't find my phone. And so I started wearing my Apple Watch again to be able to find my phone.
That's so funny.
And so, but then, you know, we started really focusing on our physical health this summer. And so we've both been wearing our Apple Watches, but I still am losing my phone because I just put it down. Mm-hmm. And my phone, I've noticed this. It's just my screen time has just gone down significantly, and it just keeps going down, which is encouraging, but also just like, wow, it's just like a reality check. Just like I used to spend all day on my phone, and now I'm just like, wow, it's gone down again this week. That's amazing. But also it's just like, it's probably because I just keep losing my phone.
It's also motivating.
It
allows
really
you to be present.
Yeah,
where you are and what you're doing in the time and not so fixated, right? Like, I mean, there's some work aspects you just got to do, and it is what it is. But other than that, it's being more present of where you are in that moment.
Yeah.
All right. So I kind of want to wrap things up. So I want to go back to We Go On. Mm-hmm. I phoned a friend on this question.
Okay.
Mr. Jesse Strickland, thank you. If We Go On is a complete success, what does that look like?
I mean, honestly, it's just to help people. And I think if we can just help one person, it would be successful, because that just means that we are doing something that we love, and we are being able to help someone who has reached out for help and has been willing to admit, I do need help. Mm-hmm. How can y'all help me? And that's the biggest thing for me, is that like it could just be one person that we help. But in that, I see all the success in it, because it means someone's willing to admit that they need help, but also that they want us to help them.
I think it's giving a voice to people and making them feel safe and just impacting other lives through our story, but just giving them the opportunity to say, hey, I need the help, and letting them speak up for themselves, because I think that's where a lot of the mental health and anxiety stems from, is I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And so if we can give someone their voice, I think that is a major, major impact.
That's beautiful. Jesse also said something about being considered Gandhi, but we won't go into that one. That's the typical.
Sounds about Jesse.
Yeah, that sounds like Jesse. All right, so to kind of conclude this, I want you guys to plug We Go On. But with that, start by answering, how can we help We Go On? Like, how can the average person help?
Yeah, so I mean, I think just put it out there, what we're trying to do. Obviously, the big thing with the foundation is raising money, you know, and so that's what we want to do. But then also sharing to friends and family who might be struggling with mental health issues of, hey, I know these people at We Go On. They can talk to you, get you going in the right direction. Most people who have not experienced counseling, therapy, any of that nature might not know where to point their friend. So we want to be that, that initial point of contact, that resource if they don't know someone to point them to. And then people who feel so led to give, to the foundation, so we can help send people. It's not just sending them to onsite, but it's also maybe help paying for 3 counseling sessions. And so that's where we, those are our 2 areas of impact, is helping people with mental health, but then also helping the financial side of it so we can give to those people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I see you got a website pulled up.
I do. This is our website. So our mission statement is to be advocates for mental health and a source of hope by providing resources, support, encouragement, and guidance for those seeking to begin or continue their journey of healing. And, a lot of times people just need that encouragement and support to take that leap of faith. Sometimes people don't need the financial aspect of it, but for the most part, like, that's why we set up this foundation for the people who do need the financial support, because that is something that I feel like a lot of people are afraid to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to be afraid to ask for financial help and things, because just the way that the world is right now, it's hard. It is really hard financially. People are just struggling. I know people are trying to just make ends meet and, doing the side hustles and things like that. And it's still just, coming up short. And that's really hard. And I think, that has just been one of the biggest blessings that we have been able to experience, is that, we are able to contribute, not a lot, but, as much as we possibly can. And, in learning that this world it's not ours. Our children, we have dedicated them to the Lord. They are the Lord's. And we have realized that, financially, even, like, everything that we have is a blessing from the Lord. It is not ours. It is His. And how we use it is going to be a testimony. And so that's one thing that we have just really come to hold fast to, is we want to help people get there financially, just no matter where they are in life, no matter what they may be dealing with. We do want to be those advocates of financial support for them, because we do think that this can make such a huge impact. Again, just even helping them find a counselor, like Marcelo said, or, getting them to onsite. There's so many different intensives that they have, whether it be individual, group counseling. They have a place called Milestones. And, they just have so many locations around the country.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just different things. But, that is just a big thing for us, is that we want to be advocates.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be there for people. Just to be listening and just supportive.
Yeah. And so you can follow us on Instagram. We Go On, right? We Go On Inc.
It's.
I'll share it. So
Okay,
you guys can screw it up.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Y'all
I'll
can
have it in the
follow
show
us.
notes.
Perfect.
So.
On our website too. And so you can get some more information.
Yeah,
All right.
and y'all
on all
can
those
follow
platforms.
us individually as well. But yeah.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and sharing your story. And I can't wait to see what happens with this nonprofit We Go On.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool.